Where the 17th Frankists and where the British Empire climbed the most was in philosophy, developing a understanding of the world that allowed them to amass more power, okay? So let's go quickly over some basic British philosophy. So British philosophy at this time was controlled by Freemasons. We'll discuss the Freemasons more next class, okay? But the main purpose was to really deny God and truth. And there were three major strands of this philosophy. Okay, the first major strand is what we call Empiricism, and the most famous proponent of this is John Locke. John Locke argued that we are born with a tabula rasa, a blank mind, okay, a blank slate. And so whatever information comes into us is through experience, only through experience, okay? Not through reasoning, not because of God, not because of imagination or inspiration, not because of the divine spark in us, but through just experience and only experience, okay? David Hume proposed a new idea called skepticism. And he goes even further than John Locke. John Locke says that we experience the world, and that's how we know the world. Now, the entire basis of science is the idea called induction. If I see a white swan 1,000 times, I can then infer that all swans are white. Okay, this idea of induction. This is what underlies scientific process. Without the idea of induction, you can never access truth. And what David Hume says is, induction does not work. You cannot prove that just because you've never seen a black swans don't exist. Okay, you could have seen 10 million white swans. That does not prove that all swans are white and can only be white. And he's right, because there are black swans, okay? So what he's saying is the very project of truth-seeking, the very project of epistemology, of philosophy, it's all nonsense. Not only that, but we don't really know things. All we do is remember things. Okay, so when we say that Rome is the capital of Italy, we think we know it, but we don't know it. It's all just convention. It's all just we agree to call a place in Italy Rome. We agree that that's a capital, okay? It's all just agreement. But there's no basis for truth here. All right? So now this raises the problem of, okay, if God doesn't exist, if truth doesn't exist, if there's no way for us to reach truth, if there's no way for us to discover truth, then what can we do? And so during Bentham proposed the idea of utilitarianism. The way we understand the world is just through utility. If it is good for the majority of people, then it must be good. If it causes pleasure for the majority of people, then that policy must be good. If people want to eat candy all the time, it makes them feel happy, then we should allow them to eat candy. And that is inherently good. Okay? And then what his disciple, John Stuart Mill, will do is he'll take the basis of this idea of utility as a basis of good and evil to create liberalism. Okay? So the very idea of liberalism today is based on utilitarianism. So for example, homosexuality. Why is homosexuality good? Because first of all, homosexuals want to be homosexuals, okay? You force them not to be homosexuals, they'll feel bad. But also what's more important is they're not doing any harm to anyone, right? So if you just do the mathematics and you recognize that allowing homosexuality is a positive, and that positive and brings more pleasure to the world, then you should allow it. Okay, and this religious talk of it goes against the will of God, it's against the Bible, it's just nonsense. We should just focus on first principles and just focus on utility. Does it bring benefit to people? And this is the very basis of British philosophy. And as you can appreciate, this aligns very much with the 17th Frankist idea of the world, right? All right. So this is John Stuart Mill, and this is Jeremy Bentham. Okay, and not only that, but once this philosophy is in place, they are now going to promote certain scientists that agree with this philosophy or whose findings support this philosophy. And the most famous, of course, is Charles Darwin. Okay, Charles Darwin, right? When his book, The Origin of Species, came out, it was an instant bestseller. And within 20 years, it became the mainstream understanding of how we originated, even though you actually read the book, even though if you actually look at science, it's still very problematic. All right, so this is very strange how science is supposed to be a field of rigorous debate, rigorous science, right? But the evidence supporting evolution is limited. And again, we discuss this all the time, but it doesn't explain to us how we come to think, right? It explains to us how we get our bodies. Sure, yeah, from apes we get humans, that makes sense, but intellectually, we're a lot more imaginative than apes. How to explain that? And he doesn't explain that, okay? And you're not even allowed to ask this question. All right, so as this alliance between the 17th Frankists and the British Empire is growing, there's certain individuals that become these meeting points of these two different groups, okay? So let's discuss two of them. The first is Benjamin Disraeli. And it's important because he becomes the first and only Jewish prime minister of the British Empire, okay? My second person is Leonon the Rothschild, who is here to the Rothschild banking family. They're best friends, and you can argue the Rothschild banking family financed Benjamin Disraeli's banking career, okay? And in 1844, Benjamin Disraeli will publish a book called Coningsby. It's a novel, okay? It's not a memoir, but it's a novel. But if you read it, people will say that the characters are very much based on people that Disraeli knows. And Disraeli is very explicit in telling us why he wrote the book. And the idea is to tell the British people more about Jews, because Jews right now in history in Britain, they're an exotic species. And it's also to establish how Jews think. Now, what's amazing about this novel is that you read it, and it's really strange, but it conforms to every single anti-Semitic stereotype that we say today. Today, you say that Jews rule the world. You say that Jews work together, they conspire together. You say that Jews think that they're superior to everyone else. You are labeled as an anti-Semite, okay? But if you read this novel, and we'll read this novel together, this is exactly what Benjamin Disraeli says, okay, about the Jewish people. All right, so let's read it together. Okay, so Amber, can you read, please? This is the introduction to the book Coningsby, okay?
In asserting the paramount character of the what is it?
Keep going.
Okay. Polity and the majesty of the theocratic principle, it became necessary to ascend to the origin of the Christian church and to meet in a spirit worthy of a critical and comparatively enlightened age the position of the descendants of that race who were the founders of Christianity. The modern Jews had long labored under the odium and stigma of medieval malevolence.
Okay, so what we're saying is this. Christianity is a great religion, but it's important that we look at the origins of Christianity and who founded Christianity, okay? Which is the Jews. We know it's the Jews who create Christianity, okay? Okay, keep on going.
In the Dark Ages, when history was unknown, the passions of societies, undisturbed by traditionary experience, were strong, and their convictions, unmitigated by criticism, were necessarily fanatical.
So during the Dark Ages, everyone was just stupid, okay? Keep on going.
The Jews were looked upon in the Middle Ages as an accursed race, the enemies of God and man, the especial foes of Christianity. No one in those days paused to reflect that Christianity was founded by the Jews, that its divine author, in his human capacity, was a descendant of King David.
Okay, divine author, of course, is Jesus, okay? Keep on going.
That his doctrines avowedly were the completion, not the change, of Judaism, that the apostles and the evangelists whose names men daily invoked and whose volumes they embraced with reverence were all Jews, that the infallible throne of Rome itself was established by a Jew, and that a Jew was the founder of the Christian churches of Asia.
So this really is not just saying that Jews are important, but he's also saying that Jews are superior because they're the ones who created Christianity. And what he will say later on is, Jews created everything because Jews are the most intellectually creative people in the world, okay? And remember, Disraeli is a Jew, and he's one of the Jewish elite, okay? All right, let's keep on going. All right, so in the novel, the major character is Sidonia, who is a wealthy Jewish person based on the Rothschild family, okay? And he's going to explain to us how Jews control the world. All right, can you read, Alan?
Yeah, okay.
Sidonia
was descended from a very ancient and noble family of Aragon.
Okay, Aragon is in Spain. Okay, so we discussed how before, for 100 years, the Jews were part of the Spanish Muslim Empire. But when they were reconquered, they were forced to leave or convert. Keep on going.
That, in the course of ages, had given to the state many distinguished citizens. In the priesthood, its member had been peculiarly eminent. Besides several prelates, they counted among their numbers an archbishop of Toledo and a Sidonia, in a season of great danger and difficulty, had exercised for a series of years the paramount office of Grand Inquisitor.
Okay, so even after the Christians reconquered Spain, and after some Jews converted to Catholicism, okay, first of all, these Jews kept their faith secret. So even though on the outside they were Catholics, in the inside they were still Jews. Okay, they were crypto Jews. But much more importantly, these Jews rose to supreme power within the Catholic Church in Spain. The irony is that the Spanish Inquisition, where Catholics were looking for Jews who were pretending to be Christians, the leadership were Jews. The leadership were crypto Jews, okay? This is what this really is saying. I'm not saying this is true, but this is what this really is saying, okay? Keep on going.
Yet, strange as it may sound, it is nevertheless a fact of which there is no lack of evidence that these illustrious family during all this period, in common with 2/3 of the Aragonese nobility, secretly adhered to the ancient faiths and ceremonies of their fathers, a belief in the unity of the God of Sinai, and the rites and observances of the laws of Moses.
Okay, so guys, 2/3 of nobility in Spain were crypto Jews. Catholics disguised, Jews disguised as Catholics, okay? All right. So again, I'm not saying this is true, but it's striking and really strange that a Jewish man who's very powerful, who will become Prime Minister of England, he's writing this stuff, okay? He's putting in the mouth of basically a Rothschild. Okay, can you read, Amber?
The Sidonians of Aragon were
New Christians.
Were nouveau Christianos. Some of them, no doubt, were burned alive at the end of the 15th century under the system of Torquemada. Many of them, doubtless, were the San Benito, but they kept their titles and estates, and in time reached those great offices to which we have referred. During the long disorders of the Peninsular War, when so many openings were offered to talent and so many opportunities seized by the adventurous, a cadet of younger branch of this family made a large fortune by military contracts and supplying the commissariat of the different armies. At the peace prescient of the great financial future of Europe, confident in the fertility of his own genius, in his original views of fiscal subjects, and his knowledge of national resources, the Sidonia, feeling that Madrid, or even Cadiz could never be a base on which the monetary transactions of the world could be regulated, resolved to emigrate to England, with which he had, in the course of years, formed considerable commercial connections. He arrived here after the Peace of Paris with his large capital. He staked all he was worth on the Waterloo loan, and the event made him one of the greatest capitalists in Europe.
Okay, so these crypto Jews, they had a lot of money, but not only that, but they have an information network, okay? Because they have relatives, friends all throughout Europe. And they are intellectually superior, and so they know how history will develop. And they see a great money-making opportunity in war. So when these wars come out, what these Jews do is they support both sides, so they can't possibly lose. And then they make a lot of money, and then they figure out where it is in the most advantage to be. So they have actually no national loyalty. They don't see themselves as belonging to a certain group of people, a certain nation. They see themselves as first and foremost Jews. Okay, so when the time presented itself properly, the Sidonians, they will migrate, some of them, not all of them, will migrate from Spain into continental Europe and up to England. They saw England as a future. And of course, from England, they will also migrate to the United States of America. Okay. Alan, can you read, please?
The only human quality.
Sorry, so the father goes to England and now he establishes the banking dynasty. And his son will now inherit everything, okay? And so this is about the son. Keep on going. Yeah.
The only human quality that interested Sidonia was intellect. He cared not whence it came, where it was to be found. Creed, country, class, character, in this respect were alike indifferent to him.
Okay, so again, this is a very anti-Semitic trope where Jews don't like the idea of nation or culture or religion. They like the idea of ideas. Okay, and one anti-Semitic trope is that Jews have a conspiracy to degrade religion, culture, society, nation state in order to advance their own interests. Okay, keep on going.
The author, the artist, the man of science never appealed to him in vain. Often he anticipated their wants and wishes. He encouraged their society, was as frank in his conversation as he was generous in his contributions. But the instant they ceased to be authors, artists, or philosophers, and their communications arose from anything but the intellectual quality which had originally interested him. The moment they were rash enough to approach intimacy and appeal to the sympathizing man instead of the congenial intelligence, he saw them no more.
Okay, so this is a really important idea where, again, this is is propaganda for Jews, right? So this really is saying how great Jews are. Jews are intellectual. But you know what Friedrich Hegel will say is that without culture, there can be no great ideas. Okay? Ideas emerge from community, from culture, from belonging. Okay? So think of Homer or Dante or even the Yahwehs. Okay? If you think that you are intellectual above culture, above nation, above people, you will not produce great ideas. Okay, keep on going.
It was not, however, intellect merely in these unquestionable shapes that commanded his notice. There was not an adventurer in Europe with whom he was not familiar. No minister of state had such communication with secret agents and political spies as Sidonia. He held relations with all the clever outcasts of the world. The catalogue of his acquaintance in the shape of Greeks, Armenians, Moors, secret Jews, Tartans, Geese.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, look, the idea is that Jews are international, first and foremost, international. They're cosmopolitan, right? And as a result, what will happen is that over time, because he is in contact with so many different groups, he's so intellectual, he's always reading his history, he becomes convinced that the superior race, the greatest race of humanity are the Jews.